Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Samantha Varner. I am head of product marketing and professional services here at Prosymmetry. Super excited to have you on for this conversation today on scaling resource management. So, why your project management organization needs more than Excel in order to succeed. And of course, we have an absolute expert on the topic today. Sean Pales will be giving today's presentation. And it's going to be a good one. I'm really excited for this. With that said, before I hand it over to Sean, we are going to have two poll questions as well right in the beginning. And honestly, Sean, perfect. Let's go ahead and dive into those polls. So give me just a second here. So first is going to be, what are you using today to manage your resources? So we'll give everyone about a minute here. And while everyone is doing this, Sean, thanks for doing this for us today. I'm excited for this conversation.
Excellent. Happy to be here. It's going to be fun. A little more relaxed presentation than some of the other ones we do.
So we have quite a few people using Excel, a few people using Tempus Resource, also using a PPM tool. So that is really exciting to see. And then our second poll here is going to be, if your team is not using Excel, so they're using that PPM tool, they're using that work management tool, they're using Tempus Resource, are some of your people still relying on Excel outside of your tool? So you have the tool in place. Are some people still doing their resource management specifically in Excel? We're just kind of curious about this one to see, what that ecosystem is like for you. And sometimes it's just the reality. Okay, so like I said, majority yes, a few not sure, absolutely no one with no, which I appreciate that. Again, reality of the situation. All right, well, thank you so much for understanding kind of where you guys are at today. That really helps us move forward with the presentation and understand the audience. So with that said, Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Samantha. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone's having a wonderful week. My name's Sean Palis, and I'll be walking through today's presentation. I think this might be cathartic for a number of folks, because what I'd like to cover today is a bit about the journey that we see many of our customers follow. And that's picking up on Excel and using Excel to solve a really critical business challenge that interacts or interfaces with a wide range of aspects of the company, whether it's strategy, top-line growth, bottom-line performance, risk management. I mean, resource management is really at the heart of everything we do. And it really just drives strategy execution. And this is sort of a mantra we sort of start all these, or I'm starting to start all my webinars with, is that the recognition that your organization's ability to successfully execute projects and strategic initiatives hinges entirely on the effective allocation and utilization of its most critical assets. Those are your resources, your people. So what we'll do today in this presentation is start with kind of the journey that we see many of our customers follow. And it sounds like a fair number of you have gone down the Excel path. So probably a lot of head nodding, maybe not, we'll see. And then really get into, well, why does Excel limit your or their ability to solve this critical, beyond fundamentals, critical business need of resource management? And some of the things are probably going to be pretty obvious, at least I think, but I live this every day and have for a long time. But then the deeper you get into resource management, and that happens really quickly. So if you have some success with Excel, the problem, you're really in quicksand, because it's going to get much, much worse, much faster. And you should be aware of the things you're going to run into. And that's why moving to a purpose-built resource management system is going to be so critical. And what I'm going to do in the end here is just kind of walk you through, number one, putting together a basic game plan. And if you have questions, want to do follow-ups with our team on, well, how should we plan to do this? We have SMEs here and implementation team members that have done this countless times for large enterprises all over the world. Some folks here that came from former customers of ours who moved on and wanted to get into the implementation game, who can speak to best practices that they've seen internally as well. But putting together kind of a high-level game plan of what it takes to, both from a process perspective and from a technical perspective, to make the move from an Excel-based approach into into Tempus in this particular case. And then we'll jump through a live demo to show you that if you do have Excel, you can move to Tempus so quickly, and we'll do it live. So it's going to be kind of fun. Hopefully everything works great, as it should, and live demos always, and we'll go from there. Okay, so again, I think everyone agrees, but I just want to hammer home how important resource management is. And I pulled together just a handful of quotes. There are so many more, but I grabbed a couple that probably are kind of wave tops, big names, and then I put some tags on them. But Gartner's most recent CEO priority report, they query over, I think, 400 CEOs, ranked workforce, resource management, as the third most important business priority for 24 and 25, behind growth and technology. Now, growth, like any CEO you talk to, like if they're not talking about growth, then it's a distressed situation. So growth is always going to be number one. So sitting in the top three is huge. And the more analysts you speak with, whether it's Gartner or elsewhere, resource management is always in that top three. And it probably doesn't get higher because a lot of folks just haven't dedicated the time to search for the solutions that are out there, namely Tempus. I'm a bit biased, but that is certainly a solution. Another comes from a great report that just came out of McKinsey, showing that, according to McKinsey data, S&P 500 companies that excel at workforce planning, resource management, generate 300% more revenue per employee. And the list goes on. I'm not going to read the rest of them. But I think what's important here is to look at those tags that I put on the right. And you may disagree, but you could argue that resource management is a critical tie into strategy of the business, execution of that strategy, top line performance, growth, risk management, understanding that if folks are leaving because you're not adequately building out your forecasts, looking for concurrency, overutilization, overtaxing, not planning for skill improvements, you have a major risk on your hand if folks are looking to move positions, especially if they're critical keystone type resources. And it might be hard to point those out without the right system in place, frankly. And then also bottom line performance. Resources are likely going to be, the biggest line, your biggest financial expense of the business, and not paying attention there can cost you a huge amount. So if you're looking for margin improvement, this is certainly a place to pay attention. And look, it may not be as popular to discuss on a call like this, but if your company is or you're responsible for planning out not just headcount improvements and adjustments, but also RIFs, having a dynamic resource management system that specializes in giving you that type of data is going to be critical, because if you start removing those linchpin resources that you're really not sure why they're a linchpin, but you remove them, they're massively difficult to hire, to find, to upskill and train. And if you have key resources that you don't understand their allocations and their interconnectedness to strategy, projects, and overall execution, removing them could be disastrous. And we have lots of horror stories that have been shared with us by customers before coming to Tempus where they had those types of issues raise their heads. So again, resource management, absolutely critical. Now, I think those of you on Excel recognize the importance of resource management. So, the first step in getting to this discussion and coming on this webinar is that you've kind of recognized that resource management is really, really important. So I do have one more slide, this one, to walk you through why it is important, and then we'll all kind of agree that, yeah, it is. So number one, our position and our product has always been resource driven. We believe that it's not so much the task execution where pretty much every PPM product lies, in being task-oriented at its genetic level. We're really resource-oriented because, frankly, no matter how much money you have, borrow, steal, whatever, if you don't have the right skills, roles, people, teams, whatever, it's just not going to get done. So you can put together some really great project selection and prioritization routines that look fantastic. But then when it comes time to actually deliver on those, if you don't have the right people, it's another level filter that you should be looking at. And a resource management system should be helping you to plan, replan, and also sequence those investments, initiatives, audits, projects, whatever it is, and however you do your project-oriented work to get the most out of those resources. Two, they're going to be your biggest cost. Invariably, if you're having success with Excel, someone is going to come to you and ask, if we're going to cut, where are we going to cut? Give me a multiple scenarios. Present me with real options for improvement. Where should I be hiring? This is going to tie in with so many areas of the business. I showed a moment ago in some of those quotes that you're going to have to pay attention to this. There's increasing compliance complexity. Managing resources is no longer just, hey, who do I have, and give me kind of their base capacity. Especially as a global business, even if you're just regional, the compliance here with GDPR, model clauses, privacy regulations, all the PII is huge. But then you've also got just increasing complexity of skills, roles, different methodologies of management. How am I handling team-based planning versus named resource planning versus role-based planning? So there's a lot of complexity here requiring a system to manage it. And then the talent marketplace just remains super competitive. You're seeing a fair number of rifts and headcount reductions that are being blamed on AI, and they're really not. I think just companies are cutting back. It's my opinion and what I've pulled from other leadership in different spaces. But the demand for key and critical roles that your businesses need to drive strategy has really never been tighter. So having a system to identify where those deficiencies exist now and well into the future based on your strategic goals and objectives is absolutely critical in order to source, hire, and integrate those employees into the mix. So again, I think we all agree. I won't keep on this topic. We agree resource management is really important. Now, again, talking through the journey that many of our customers took before moving to Tempus was recognizing the problem, which is great, first step. But then, well, how do I solve it? So clearly I need some kind of software solution to help address this. It's a complicated problem set. We can't do this on a sheet of paper. So let's look what we have off the shelf. And the majority of our customers are larger enterprises. And they might start with, well, this is resource related, so let's look at the suite of HR-focused products we have, HCM, HRIS, maybe it's Workday or something PeopleSoft. And yeah, there's plenty of stuff there for managing people, but mostly from an HR perspective. And what many find is, look, these have no forecasting capabilities, and there's usually a huge chasm between the types of data that are available in an HRIS or HCM system and what is actually used in the performance of job activities. So what you'd find, especially when it comes to things like building out and managing a skill matrix and identifying those things, what they'll have in the HR department will not match what you need to manage your portfolio. I can just say that definitively across hundreds and hundreds of enterprise customers. It's just the same case everywhere, and everyone nods their head. So typically, again, our customers say, look, no, that didn't work. The next stop is maybe more of a generic ERP product. Maybe it's SAP, maybe it's also Workday or something else. Again, products not really geared towards providing the suite of capabilities needed for managing people and their allocations and planning headcount for project-oriented work. Again, just not a fit. Then you have the task and work management tools, and there are so many of them, and they all claim as they try to pick up more market share with nonstop, private equity backing and purchases to get into every single use case. So a lot of times they'll push out there, oh, hey, just build a task list. That's all you need, and that'll handle your resource management. I mean, in reality, resource management is so much deeper, so much more complex, and requires so many different types of data and planning mechanisms that these task and work management tools, I would really caution you to avoid getting in any level of depth or attempting to around resource management. And again, our customers recognize that and say, look, that didn't work either. Collaboration tools, dead end. Then we get to the unique PPM, project portfolio management tooling. That one's kind of up in the air, and they've always claimed to address resource management. What's unique there is our company, Prosymmetry, really emerged as a product, Tempus Resource did, and soon Tempus Portfolio, due to the complete lack of focus on resource management by PPM products. So we came out of that void. That's why we exist. And while many of them will talk to resource management, again, the focus is going to be largely on sequencing of work and their task orientation at a genetic level. They're not built around the time phase, time series, resource management challenges that you're trying to solve. And again, another dead end. And we have so many customers that either because of licensing or contracts still have a bunch of PPM tools they can't get rid of, or moved to Excel and then ultimately to us because the PPM product just did not do anything related to resourcing. I mean, we've seen that case hundreds of times. So again, most of our customers, before coming to us and before recognizing a dedicated resource management system is required, went to Excel. It's available. It seems as if it's free. I can get moving really quickly. I can show results quickly. So why don't I do that? So it makes sense. Like I understand why people go to it. You have it and you think it can solve the problem. So it's kind of like, yeah, I get it. I'll go there. Okay. So you've onboarded Excel as your resource management tool, and you're making progress. You're loading resources and projects, and we'll get to a bunch of problems with the actual data itself in a moment, namely that you're likely going to have the same resource in there 5 times, name 3 different things, projects of the same or different names that are different things. Like, look, Excel is great getting data in, but in terms of maintaining any type of integrity, it falls woefully short. And we get dozens of these Excel files weekly from customers that are trialing our software, and you start to see sort of a central density around where do you see major gaps in Excel. And we'll talk more about that when we get to building a roadmap to move away from it. And then we see people using wild stuff like color coding to imply all sorts of business rules and logic, and myriad other issues. But this list here starts to really scratch the surface because it gets so much deeper than this. But the challenge with Excel, and some of these are going to seem self-evident to many of you that have been in technology or software for a long time, and they really are, but others might get a bit deeper. The first is Excel is that single point of failure. If and when you leave, you transition, you go to another position, there's a reorg, you say, I'm done, I'm leaving, it's all lost. No one's taking your Excel file, backing into all the business logic you inserted, the secret color coding logic, the hacks you used to answer one question from Sean in a particular group, and he asks for it a certain way and he's a pain. All of that's embedded in your brain and in that Excel file. When your brain is no longer available to service it, forget it. The next person isn't picking it up and running with it. So it's a single point of failure. We get it. All those hidden shortcuts and assumptions. Again, I spoke to it a moment ago, but you're not documenting those. You're not, and we've never seen a customer build out an extensive list of here's all the changes I made in my Excel RM product that I built for my company to help address these challenges. You're just not going to do it. You have a primary role, a primary job, and it's likely that it doesn't involve, hey, you're our full-time governor of all resource management activities. That's something we see almost in every case, is the person who's doing this might also be running some other business line or serving some other role or capacity, and this is like a secondary job. So it's not receiving all of your attention. It just can't. It's going to limit responsiveness. Assuming you've done well with this and you're starting to get some buy-in from users, you're going to be that person who's responsible for providing them with data, whether it's reporting, gap analyses, Shaler mountain charts, supply-demand analytics, just at a very basic level. It's going to strip and outstrip your capacity, and it's not something that is really scalable. And it's going to limit how you can do your other job and others as well. The credibility risk that goes along with this doesn't really require stating. People are going to question accuracy when it's not in an enterprise app. Look, change management is a challenge no matter what, whether it's an Excel or an enterprise application. But when it's in one person's Excel file, it can always be questioned. And that can also help with getting data from users that you need to participate in this process. If they want to put up any level of resistance to you, they can immediately start chipping away at it because, look, hey, it's Sean's Excel file. I'm not sure how often he's updating it. The data looked wrong last time. So they can kind of build a case pretty easily. And it's going to be hard for you to fight it. So there's that ongoing credibility risk that really pushes back on any type of change related to it, as opposed to, again, a dedicated system that's built around this. It's a little bit different in that case, especially given its real-time nature, its active analytical capabilities, and also just the overall investment by the company into making resource management a critical initiative. Privacy violations is a big one that people don't want to talk about, but it really is. Like, we as a company, whenever our customers interact with us, there are reams of NDAs and model clauses and privacy agreements. In your case, you're creating an Excel file that you're likely storing. Who knows where you're storing it? Is it in the right spot? Does your internal audit organization know about that? Are you violating PII rules by having data from workers that are over in Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, wherever in the world out that have separate privacy agreements and privacy rules governing their PII information? Have you thought about that? And it's staggering the number of users internally that just don't. When you start to work with a vendor, it's different. But internally, you're subject to the same types of rules and regulations. And there could be major challenges here, especially if you're dealing with like things like worker councils overseas, and you're starting to store PII data. You could be running into some real problems. It's siloed. Again, there's no good easy way to share. I don't care what Microsoft subscription you have and what Power BI you have. You can't share it. It's hard to update. You can't collaborate. If you're sending the file, it means data are out of sync. These, again, are just old school types of silo-related challenges. And it's not scalable. You're not going to be able to bring on multiple groups in a sustainable way. I think what's beneficial is starting there is it gives you kind of a POC approach to what you'd like to get out of a resource management system. And it also points out it should, if you've had some success with this, where you're going to have challenges around change management and what might be needed to overcome that. So as long as you're framing it as an understanding, hey, this isn't going to completely scale and I'm going to run out of bandwidth here and run out of capability, it can provide you with that. But again, there are myriad risks here to using Excel for resource management. Now, these are the high-level ones, but it gets so much worse. So if you've had any success with that Excel file for doing resource management, you are going to run into a buzzsaw pretty quickly, because if someone now says, oh, hey, Sean's file is actually super useful, you're now going to be asked to do things your Excel file will just not do. Like you're going to hit hard walls, like hard stop, can't do it. How do you handle varying units of measure? Does your company plan by FTE, percentage, cost, hours, story points, man days, person days? Well, what if one group wants it one way, another wants it another? How are you handling your conversions? And you start to get into some complex technical topics that you just don't want to do in Excel and the amount of time required. Again, you're building a whole custom app. How are you handling teams of resources? How am I handling named resources, roles, and teams? And what if, our company's going agile, but hey, by the way, we still steal people from every team. So we say we're agile, but we're really not. Plus we have operational work, waterfall work, and some agile, and some teams, some dedicated teams, some mixed. How am I going to handle that? Good luck doing that in Excel. How about hard caps? What if you have worker councils in Germany, and you're prohibited from allocating that person beyond a certain limit? If not, they have a potential fine that they could levy against an internal group in the business, or there might be some remediation required internally. And then how do you answer questions? We want to adjust headcount in North America. What happens? What if we delay or shift a particular project? Where can we best upskill across our team? You start to get into all sorts of data sets that, one, aren't tracked and managed easily in Excel or really available there at all, require extensive collaboration and communication, require real-time, potentially integrations with other systems. So again, if you've had any level of success, you're going to run into this problem very quickly, and there's no solving with Excel. Okay, so shifting to a purpose-built and dynamic resource management platform has huge benefits. Number one, it should provide this dynamic portfolio planning capability. You should be able to plan, replan, and engineer your portfolios under the constraints, the real constraint to your business being resources. You should be able to understand where are those bottlenecks, where are my gaps, how can I construct, and not an optimal portfolio, but an achievable portfolio. Anyone can pick up a corporate finance book and play these games with ILP, and there's a million different operations research-oriented algorithms and finance algorithms to come up with an ideal mix of projects based on investment criteria, and NPV, APV, IRR, real options, whatever. But then ultimately you have to do it. And again, resources are going to be the constraint to actually getting that done. Now, can we bring financials in as well as part of that constraint? Yes. But again, this planning and replanning should be done under the constraints of resourcing. You should be able to accurately forecast and plan, not just near term, but longer term. Executive management and others are going to want to know, what am I getting, what is being delivered, and when, based on that sequencing of work, my engineered portfolio, the headcount that I have, and then where do I have challenges? Where do I have to hire? Where should I be sourcing talent? What areas could we RIF, and what areas must we absolutely invest in more fully to deliver on the strategy that we're trying to achieve? Okay. You should be able to assign people, teams, roles, regardless of methodology. And then you've got to be able to get what-if capabilities out of the product to answer questions. It's so absolutely critical, especially under constraints of resource management in this dynamic marketplace. Knowing where those key bottlenecks are across your portfolio, those are so important to understand, plan for, and be able to understand well in advance. Again, because these things oftentimes aren't solved overnight. If you're making huge advancements and you need a range of cybersecurity resources and AI engineers, so does everybody else. So the earlier you can identify it and or plan internally around upskilling, these are critical differentiators for your organization. Okay. So preparing for the transition from Excel to Tempus. Look, you pick other products, whatever you'd like. We are a purpose-built resource forecasting, capacity planning, resource management system. So I'm going to focus on Tempus. But there's really kind of two work tracks here. And this is real high-level game plan stuff. If you're thinking about going through this and wanted to talk in much more detail, again, we have team members that are more than happy to spend time with you and talk through this in much greater detail. But there's really two key tracks here, one being process-oriented, which is kind of the business analysis, the change management, all the non-technical stuff, although there's always an element, some technical stuff there. So you have that work track, and then you have the technical track, which is really looking at the Excel file you've created and getting it into a shape where it can essentially go through an ETL of get it out of Excel into a format to which you can go into, in this case, Tempus. We'll talk through each one. So from a process perspective, the first thing I think that's just so critical is what are the outputs? You know, when you are, what are you currently providing? I mean, because obviously this is a baseline that you've got to be able to meet. If you move to Tempus or another product and you're not able to do what you do in Excel, well, that's obviously a huge problem. So defining what is that core pain point in your company's terminology, and then what are those key outputs that absolutely have to be provided? I mean, these are things that you should be able to plan towards rolling out or introducing very quickly out of the gate. Two is, who are the contributors? When you use Excel, you generally are going to know, who do I have to go to talk to update the forecast data that I've got in my Excel file. Now, post rollout of Tempus, these should likely become your active planners, resource managers, others who are updating forecasts and maintaining those data in their function, role, department, or however you're organized. So you want to identify that, think through what the security rights might be, who's going to access what is the frequency going to be of those updates, and then how do you get them onboarded? And there's some techniques for that, including sort of interview-based approaches, because you're really pushing the reality that updating forecasts is not an overwhelming activity. I think many fall back on the sort of legacy project management methodologies where they're updating these complicated task-oriented schedules that can take hours or days, and nobody wants to do it, and that's why so many have moved away from it. But updating forecasted resource needs is way simpler. I mean, we have evidence from our customers as well as from practitioners that have joined us. It's so much lighter an activity. Now, is there change management involved in getting this rolled out and interacting with those teams and users to get them onboarded and share the data? Yes, but that's going to happen with any system you pick, whether it's for the process of dealing with resource management or facilities management or whatever. I mean, there's always change management, and you're best to lead that within your organization. Okay, so identifying those key contributors of data, who has to play a role, who can provide the data, and building out those communities, at least writing them out and listing them out and having a plan for it. You then get into limitations. So evaluate what are the main limitations you're hitting today. I mean, this is not only to kind of prove out here's the additional value I'm getting, but it's really to get past where Excel is breaking for you today. If you know that, look, one of the biggest challenges is we have a challenge of generating the financial costs of our resource needs because we have different rates and different escalation points for different resources, and I can't do it in Excel. Or we know right now we have team-based planning along with named resource planning. We have no way to do that in Excel. So understand where your limits are today and mark those down as things you absolutely want to achieve, because there's some planning you can do ahead of time to get a lot of that value and implement that very rapidly when you move to Tempus. And then start thinking outside of that, beyond that. If you have, and this is a more of if possible, if there is an additional executive buy-in and leadership around it that's saying, look, we know we kind of have a roadmap of when we do move to Tempus, we want in a year to be able to align strategy much more closely. We want to be able to get to our story point costing information, whatever it may be. Lay out what those longer term objectives and goals are, because you might be able to do those much more quickly. One area where you would be around what if analysis and real options guidance for the business. To be able to say, instead of me just being a reactive silo, when someone comes to me saying, hey, we're going to delay this, what's going to happen? Be able to present the business with, hey, here's currently where we're at. Here's a list of proposed work that we have, whether it's in Tempus or from our CRM or elsewhere. If we intend to do that, here's where we're going to have major gaps in delivery and challenges, bottlenecks, and others. So you can proactively provide guidance to the business. And a number of our customers have created what they call, essentially distilled back down across all of them and converted it into English, is like a demand factory, where they can go through a planning and replanning exercise that they might have done in the past, at best, semi-annually because it was so painful. Now they can do it every couple of weeks, maybe monthly, where they're able to do the resource requests, the resource approvals, the planning, the trade-off analysis, gap analysis, the what-if analysis, and they can adjust their portfolio, implement those changes, and get more work done and pull work ahead. And there's evidence they've achieved not just millions in savings, but I don't know the exact quantity, but millions more in gains from achieving product launches earlier, launching implementations and implementing systems much more quickly and repeatedly. So that what if is going to be a huge differentiator. You can get to it very rapidly. I'm going to show you that in a minute. On the technical side, there's cleanup in that file. And we're happy to help you with this. So if you have a file today and said, hey, Prosymmetry, I'm going to send you the file with an NDA or without, whatever, and show us how you can do this. We do this all the time. We've seen it all. And we can also tell you, like, you don't really need a resource management system, because sometimes we get people sending things where they'll send us their resource management system and there's no resources in it. So but that's also a good starting point, that, okay, you have the containers for where resourcing should be done, but you need a little bit farther. Tempus is a great place to start versus spinning your wheels in the Excel quicksand. So cleaning up those files is going to be huge. The first is really defining the key attributes. So understanding for all the outputs for your stakeholders and consumers and elsewhere, for analytics you get now or want in the future, how do you slice and dice resources? How do you slice and dice projects, programs, portfolios, all of those things? What are those key dimensions you use to summarize the business and then sort of decompose it for different areas of the business? You don't have to know it all now. Tempus makes it super easy to upload this stuff from Excel, through the API, right in the UI, however you want. So you can make changes quickly, but the more you know this, the better, and the cleaner the data come over. And it's not a huge exercise. The other one is are the entities themselves. I mean, the number of times we see a customer provide us with resource inventory, project inventory, allocation data, and there are duplications. The same projects are named 3 different things. The same resources are named different things. Capacity exists where it shouldn't. Allocation exists where it shouldn't. So there's going to be some cleanup there, which you can do before importing, or it can happen after. It's kind of up to you. I think the cleaner you bring the data in, the faster things can move as part of the import process, because you might bring over such junk, you go, you know what, we're just going to start over. And that happens sometimes. And the third step here is, and Tempus will ship with a number of pre-built dynamic templates for attributes, roles, skills, teams, trainings, you name it. And you can then dynamically adjust those Excel files and conduct imports, and I'm going to show you that in a minute, and prepare those import files. And we can assist you with this as part of doing a free trial, or if you go down the road of an implementation, you can do it. You can hire a partner, or our team can assist you with it. But effectively, these are the 2 core paths. Again, high-level game plan stuff. If you're interested in getting much deeper here, again, we have teams of people that can assist you and walk through exactly what you should be thinking about. Where are the landmines? Where are the challenges? Where are you going to run into change management issues? How can we assist? How can we roll this out much more quickly? And is it sort of a one bite at a time, or are you going for sort of more of a big bang approach, and we can provide guidance there? All right, so these are some things to think about as part of transitioning from Excel into Tempus, in this case, as your resource management system. Okay, so what I'd like to do next is just take you through this process live. I've got 2 instances up in case. I used to work with Microsoft a long time ago, and I've seen plenty of people blue screen and demos go sideways. So this should be smoother, I hope. And I've got a number of pre-built import files. And that's not to minimize the amount of effort to get your data into these import files, but it's also not a huge undertaking. There's certainly cleanup activities, but getting them into these import files is not a huge activity. I mean, it's pretty simple to do, and I'll show you some of these in a moment. And we'll actually walk through the import. We're going to add attributes. We'll get the resource pool loaded. We'll load projects. We'll populate planned and actual data. Historical, that's another thing to think about. How far back do you want to pull in your historical information? We'll upload our entire skills matrix, maybe some project financials, and then from there we'll go right to a gap analysis. We'll build some supply-demand graphics, and we'll get a what-if going, an instance. So I've got 2 different instances of Tempus, so let's jump back here, and you'll notice this is empty. It's just a trial environment, and currently there's no projects. There's 1 resource, which is just the admin account that I'm logged in as, and we have a dark theme as well, which you may like based on your eyes or not. I'll keep it the light theme, and we'll jump to admin settings. Now, under admin settings, we have data sync, and data sync gives us a range of off-the-shelf integration options. There are many, many more. If you have a ServiceNow and Workday and PeopleSoft and Oracle, we have connectors to all of those. They just differ in complexity. But most of our customers, even if they have those, are starting with Excel. Now you'll see we have a range of different import wizards, ranging from attributes all the way to team resources and financials, advanced rates, and so on. And each of these will have its own template that allows you to bulk upload data. And each one has its own instructions. And it's really simple to pull these together. Now what I've got here in this folder are a range of different Excel files that I've pulled down from our team. And you can see, for example, if we look at our projects file, this contains a list of all the projects that we want to import, our project names, dates, import behavior, are we merging, skipping, overwriting, and then a range of attributes that are important to us. The current phase, the project manager, the priority, the senior leader. So we have all of that. We have our resource data as well. So we have our entire resource pool here of named and generic placeholders. Don't know if we have any teams, but we can take a look. Names, rates, let's see, department, employment basis, position, role. And then we start to get into their time, phase, capacity as well over multiple periods. And we also have skills, and we have assignment information. So let's jump into this import process, and hopefully everything moves along slowly, or swimmingly. So let's drag in here. Let's take our attributes. So this is going to help us configure the system. We're going to drop in attributes and hit synchronize. All right. So this is uploading our attributes. There we go. So it's imported project custom fields, resource custom fields, and some assignment custom fields. You'll see below everything completed successfully. Awesome. So at this point, if we just take you quickly through the app, if we go to attribute management, where we support, again, a huge volume of different attribute types, these are now all part of the system. So you can see under current phases, we have phase 1, 2, 3, 4. You can throw on background colors, you can enable or disable, you can add iconography. But again, these are all now in the system. We still have no projects and resources. So let's go back to Data Sync, Excel, and let's load our resource pool. So now I'm going to take my resources, drag those in, synchronize. See the 110 resources, and there we go. Those are all added. Looks good. Let's just quickly take a look. So now I have my resource pool of 111 resources, no team resources, but just 111 named. And now we could start popping in, those different attributes here if you'd like. This is a group by, but let's add in some of our attributes, maybe resource role, skill, hired on. Again, all these things are being available now. I once again use group by. Let's add the department, employment basis. So these things are now all, let's expand all. There we go. We've got our resource pool constructed. So we're off to a good start. Next, let's go back to admin settings, data sync. And again, this literally walks you through what's needed to get this system built. So we started with attributes, handled resources. Now let's load our project inventory. So we'll go back to our project import file, synchronize. There we go. Okay, looks like and it gives you warnings. So if any of the data don't fully comply, like we have here in a few cases, those will get skipped. So now our projects are imported, and we can now start to see that in project management. Here's a list of projects. We can throw in some of these columns, maybe project priority. Let's see, what else do we have here? Security group, senior leader, location, state, all those things are here. And then, of course, you open up Kanban views, Gantt style views. These are all now immediately available. In fact, we can jump here really quickly. There we go. So we've got our project inventory ready. Next thing I want to do is let me load in my allocation information. So at this point, maybe my FTE data, percentages, working hours, whatever I've planned for my headcount, whether it's named resources, teams, roles, I now want to get that populated. Now, in a separate meeting or demo, we can show you how simple it is to just do these things manually. But again, we're talking about transitioning out of Excel. So now for this data set, let me show you what this looks like. So this is my assignment data. And in this case, this file is showing us the time series of, there we go, here we go. So our project, the resource, the task, or it can just be project level. So many of our customers just plan at the project level. Am I importing in hours, cost, FTE, the unit of measure, the time granularity, any assignment attributes, and then the actual values themselves, which in this case are hours by month. But they could also be hours for the entire project. So you just have literally one column that says, hey, I want you just to sort of peanut butter spread these hours or this FTE number across the entirety of the project for that particular resource. So there's a lot of flexibility in how that can be done. So let's drag our assignment data in. We're on assignments. Let's synchronize. Okay. So it's asking if we want to merge because those projects exist. All right. And notice we have a few here where, hey, couldn't find, project doesn't exist because we missed it earlier, which is fine. And we'll go ahead and resolve. All right. So that's just telling us the same issue it found previously, but now we see, and this looks like a number of, okay, so just misalign on allocation dates, but that's okay. We'll go back to that. And now we can continue building out our forecast. So it can be, or in our configuration, administrative time, skills, rates, financials. And I do want to do one more, and then we'll start jumping in the system. But let's do skills with categories. So this now is our skill matrix. We're going to go ahead and upload that. There we go. All right, so now we have our skill matrix complete. So now we have our projects in the system, we have allocation data, we have our resources in the system, and we now also have our skills data. So if we jump over to the skills matrix for any particular resource, we can now start building out what our skills are. Now this could also be uploaded, but this complete configuration is now done. So I could start setting this information, or as an end user, if I have rights, I can jump to my skill matrix, specify which skills are critical for the business for me, and specify, well, I'm a 4 in asset management, a 3 in engineering, and a 5 in environmental. All right, and go ahead and save that. So lots of options here. Now, with our projects, resources, and skills data in place, we can now jump to things like reporting. So I can now very quickly create a supply demand analytics. So maybe something like, let's do a RAR2 chart. So we'll say this is supply demand, and we'll go to config. We're going to say we're going to do this by month, by hours, and I'm not sure when these data are from, so it might go back to 2024. So we'll say January 1, and we're going to go, we'll do it to March. And our data series here, we're going to say is our level of allocation. And we're going to say, yep, this is, well, we'll do it by, we'll just say a flat bar. That's good. We'll add that series. And then maybe we'll add the base capacity, align, no grouping, add the series. And we'll save. So there, with almost no work, and this is a really basic one. It's not super pretty, but supply demand analytic done. You would obviously spend more time than I'm doing here. We could also then easily put together, maybe this doesn't have to be a gap report. I'm going to show you that elsewhere, but we could do it here as well, is just maybe our planned allocation data. So we'll do a quick report maybe by year and then month. We'll do that. Maybe at the project level, we'll start with custom fields, and we'll do something like, hey, we want to see it by phase, then by the project name. We want to drill down into the resource allocation in each one just so I can. I'm going to share this report with everybody, and we're going to do planned allocation, and let's do it by hours. And there we go. So now we have another report complete, seeing total amount of effort by project or by phase, project, named person, and we can overlay heat maps, whatever you'd like. Okay, so now we have another report. Now, gap analyses could be done in that same report. You could also do them here directly in this net availability view. And I maybe take this report and say, I want to look at this by month. I'm going to group it by, how about position? And what I want to see here is only where, let's overlay a heat map, and I want to only see my deficits. Now, in this case, naturally, I upload a data set that has none. Oh, there we go. So Roy Garcia has a 17-hour gap. Now, if I had uploaded and tested my data ahead of time, I'd give you a better display, but immediately get a gap analysis by resource. Here's some others. Now, when I roll them up by position roll, there's a lot of remaining capacity. So you're not seeing the gap at that level, but we are seeing our gaps by named individuals. All right, so if we have more fulsome data, we'd start to see that at the parent level. So there's one quick gap view by hours, but it could also be done by FT percentage, FTEs, cost, however you'd like. All right, then the last place I'll take you, and then we'll close things out, is the what if analysis. So with all those data in place, I'm going to create a new model. Let's call this 10-year model. Again, I'm going to go back in time because I imported older data. I'm sorry about that. Let's pretend, though. Let's say it's 2024, and we're going to go out 10 years. You can go out 20 years if you'd like. We're going to aggregate these data here first by position roll. We'll just grab them all. Then maybe a drill down into employment basis so we know who's a contractor, who's not. You could have multiple levels. I'm missing a bunch of projects here. Let's do partial. There we go. Okay, so yeah, these are overlapping. I should have done, let me actually go back. No, we'll keep it this way. This is good for now. So we have our project selected. We've got 20 projects in the model. Lots of other options here. We're going to leave these all pretty much off for now. Hit save. There's my model. There we go. And we're already out of the gate. We now have a model in place. We have our allocation percentages. Here's my grid view. Let me put this into deficit only. Looks like none. Yep, there are my deficits when I drill down by contractor, staff, full-time. They're not rolling up to the consultant level, but if we re-architected our model here, we can look at the gap analysis a little bit differently. And now I can start answering questions. Now I can start the process of, let's say, jump to a heat map and see, here's my staff full-time. Python phase 10 is causing this challenge. Let's see what happens if we shift this out, and I can immediately start unwinding some of these challenges. And if that level is too difficult, we can drill down to the task level. There might be a shift, cancel, clone at this level as well. So that's I did a lot of stuff, but I can promise you all I did was I took my Excel file, broke it down into these import files, went through an import, and here in a couple of minutes, I have a what-if model, a supply-demand analytic, a summary report of all my supply-demand information, and gap analyses in a couple different places. And then we have a skills matrix, project inventory, resource inventory. So we can move very quickly from your Excel file to this resource management system, Tempus Resource specifically, and we're happy to walk you through that process. So moved a little bit quick there, but wanted to get as much in as possible. And with that being said, I want to thank everybody for attending today. You can scan the little QR code there to get access to schedule a demo, or if you're not allowed to click that, if you just click on that or browse to that URL below, you can reach out to us and request a demo, a free trial. And if you have any other questions, we're happy to help you on this journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Like I said, any questions that were answered, we will go ahead and reach out to you, or any questions that were asked, I should say, we will go ahead and reach out to you specifically. But thank you so much for joining us today. Recording will be available soon. You can share that with your teammates. The slides will be available soon. Really good conversation today. So thank you so much, Sean. Have a great day, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.